Stylewise presents SuccessfulDJ.com.
What's up, DJ? Stylewise here from SuccessfulDJ.com. In this video, you're going to learn about how to get hundreds of 5-star DJ reviews and how to charge up to $18,000 per gig. This is the Successful DJ Spotlight, and who I have for you today is one of the most successful DJs in the country. His name is DJ Louis Grail. DJ Louis Grail is one of the top-rated, most reviewed DJs in Texas. He operates in Houston, Texas. He has over 215 5-star reviews on WeddingWire.com. That's just one of the sites that he has reviews on. He's been a DJ for 16 years. He's got 12 different DJs that work for him. He does 17 events every single week on average, and he's charged up to $18,000 per gig. I really enjoyed talking with my homie DJ Louis Grail. He's an incredibly generous, an incredibly open dude, and a guy that deserves every single bit of success that he has gotten. And he's just a really great dude. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. This is my time with DJ Louis Grail. Louis Grail, welcome, man. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me, dude. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. So just so you know, and just so the listeners know, we were talking a little bit before the interview, but we found you because our mission and my mission is to spread knowledge about what makes DJs successful. I created and started SuccessfulDJ.com, and that's really the mission, is to spread knowledge about what makes DJs more successful. But what I found is that a lot of times DJs such as yourself, Louis, don't exactly realize how amazing everything they're doing is because it's just what they do. So I get really excited when I see someone like you has over 215 5-star reviews on WeddingWire.com, for example, and that's just one of the websites you have reviews on. And I go, okay, let's look at reviews, right? Like DJs listening to the DJ listening and watching right now. Reviews are the thing that separate the boys from the men when it comes to this DJ game, because a review is not something that you can fake. Maybe before, back in the day, you could kind of fake it, but now when everything's online, everything's full transparent, you can see what DJs are really doing it and what DJs aren't. So I want to get to know your story, Louis. I want to ask you about how you started, but first I'd like to start with a question about your reviews, because that's what stands out to me the most about what you're doing, man. Like the most reviewed and the top reviewed DJ on WeddingWire.com in your area, and definitely one of the highest performers in Texas and the country. Tell me a little bit about how you got to that point.
Honestly, it's since the moment I actually, or my team actually starts developing the the relationship with the clients, we kind of subliminal implant messages to the client, like, hey, there's going to be an email that's going to follow up after the meeting. If you don't mind, just leave a review. Some people are all about reviews and some aren't, so it's kind of like a numbers game. But if you kind of let the client know, say, hey, look, we're really, we look forward to reviews. Even if it's got to be your honest opinion. We don't just want you to just fake the funk, and they appreciate that. You know what I mean? Especially nowadays with technology and everybody's online and stuff like that. They want to, try to get as much information from a vendor by looking at the reviews. So the reviews are really important.
And Louis, how important are reviews to your business?
To me, they're I would say they're the number one thing that matters most to me, because it's along with customer service. It's up there.
Okay, so one of the most successful DJs in the country, you heard it right there. Two most important things are the reviews and the service, and that goes back to something that I say a lot on SuccessfulDJ.com, which is that it is not your music that is the most valuable thing about what it is that you do as a DJ. It's the way that you deliver that music, and that is your service. right? And a lot of times as DJs, we think that, you know, the music is the most important and the most valuable thing about what it is that we do. And while it is very important and very valuable, there's something that's even more important and valuable, and that is how you deliver that music, and that's your service. Would you agree with that, Lewis?
I mean, I completely agree. I mean, you can be the best DJ in the world, but if you don't communicate with your client, you don't send those emails on time, or you don't, you know what I mean, send those quotes, or give them that contract in a timely manner, that's going to affect, you know what I mean, whether or not they're going to book you, and then in the long run, that's going to affect their review itself, you know. So it's the music's it'll just get you halfway there. You know what I mean? It's all about the communication with a client that's going to, and the presentation that's going to complete the whole experience.
Absolutely, man, 100%. And to the DJ watching and listening right now, if you're interested in going deeper with this single thing, check out the video I did called How to Be a DJ That Doesn't Suck on YouTube, and I go over the 3 different things that are 3 steps to being a DJ that doesn't suck. But the thing that's amazing about you, Lewis, is that your music is obviously a 10 out of 10. Just looking at your reviews, that's the people saying that themselves that you service, and also, you know, the service is top notch as well, because, you know, on your reviews, like, you're being reviewed on quality of service, responsiveness, professionalism, valuable, and flexibility. Those are the 5 different criteria for a weddingwire.com review. So if you're a DJ that's looking to improve, if you're a DJ that's looking to get more gigs and get better reviews and more reviews, then look at those 5 things, right? Look at those 5 things as things that you need to look at and rate yourself 1 out of 5 on how you're doing in those 5 things. And you should be striving to make all of those 5 things a 5 out of 5 every time. Now, just going through some of these reviews, man, I pulled out a few that really stood out to me, because I think that they'll be helpful for the DJ watching and listening to kind of just get some inspiration. So one that I pulled out, Lewis, on your profile here, is that people raved about how good the DJ and music were. People raved about how good the DJ and music were. And the reason why I really like that one is because that's not them saying that you're a really nice guy, which you are. It's not them saying that you're really professional in your operation, which you are. The record shows that for sure. But it's saying that the people at the event were absolutely engaged in what you were doing, which means you're a good DJ.
Yeah. And I would say I don't want to take all the credit. It's a team effort. You know, your company is as good as your weakest link. And so my job is to kind of find out, you know what I mean, if we have any struggles in any different areas in our company. So if we have a DJ that just got on board 6 months ago and he's kind of struggling on, you know, whatever ABC, my focus and attention is going to be to make sure ABC is taken care of, and it doesn't, you know what I mean, it's not a reoccurring incident or anything like that. So then, of course, training. It's all about training. You can't. I staff about 12 DJs. It's that number stays pretty consistent all the time, and so we probably do on average weekend somewhere between 17 to 20 events. And when I say that, it's not 17 events on a Saturday. It's more like, you know, a couple events on a Thursday, like fashion shows or clubs or whatever. You know, a few weddings, probably 3 or 4 on a Friday, and 8 or 9 on a Saturday, and then maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 on a Sunday. So, but on my end, I have a team of guys who we work closely in the office where we manage all those events, and we confirm all those details, and we make sure that those DJs have what they need in order to become successful at those events. And when we communicate, we confirm everything with the clients. They feel confident that they're not left in the dark. They're like, ooh, I hope my DJ knows about my event this weekend. We'll beat them to the punch. Not for them to call us, we'll call them to confirm everything. So the moment the client calls you, that means you're late on your game.
That's an excellent tip right there, man. Excellent tip right there. Being proactive, which is what I would call that. And that's really the key to top-notch, high-quality service. Now, the thing that I really like about you, Lewis, is that your company has high-quality DJs, but as I said before, you also have high-quality service. And when you put those two things together, you get an absolutely lethal combination where people give you reviews like this, because that's everything that people care about. They want high-quality entertainment, and they want high-quality service.
Yes, sir. I agree.
So I want to go down a couple more of these reviews and just point out a couple of things that stood out to me. Every time I looked over at Lewis, he had a big smile and seemed to be enjoying himself, which I think is awesome. So I really like this because this means that you're engaged with the crowd just as much as they're engaged with you, right? And that to me is such an important aspect of DJing that I think gets overlooked so often, right? Like a lot of times DJs will be standing up there and you know some of these EDM DJs, you see this, right? Where they're just kind of like playing music and they're not really that into it. And then sometimes you see the DJs that are really into the music, they're really into the crowd, and not only are they creating that experience, but they're participating, they're enjoying that experience as well along with the crowd. And so that to me speaks to the amount of passion that you have for this, and I really like that, man. I just wanted to ask you, what do you think about how important that is?
Well, I mean, it starts off with the way my equipment's set up. My number one pet peeve is it as a DJ, everybody's going to look at you and they're going to constantly look at you all the time. And for guys to sit there and put a laptop in the middle of their setup to cover their face, that's, you know what I mean? Even though that's the best position to put their laptop to, you know what I mean? To look at their Serato screen, it's probably the worst for the guests and for everybody that's looking at them, because they're not going to be able to see that DJ at all. All they're going to see is a little Apple symbol or whatever that they have that's covering the face. So my recommendation, and this is what I do, and all the DJs that are listening, is throw your laptop to your stronger right or left side. It's going to be a lot easier for you to kind of, you know what I mean, load up your songs. But not only that, when people are kind of watching you, they're gonna watch your body language. They're gonna watch to see what you do. So if like you throw on whatever song, right, and then your body language is dull or you're not smiling or whatever the case may be, then the crowd's going to react to that. But if you have a smile on your face, you're dancing around, you're good, you'll have some props and you throw on, you know what I mean, an Iron Man little face mask, and you throw on, you know what I mean, the Iron Man theme song in the middle of your set, people are going to be like, oh snap, you know what I mean? So it's just, it's like a vibe read between the DJ and the crowd, and putting that laptop in the middle of your setup, covering your face, you're disconnecting that connection between you and the crowd. I love that. And if you don't, you know what I mean? So it starts there. So what I did to get to that point is, I have a business coach to always kind of give me advice on things that I need to do and what I need to stay away from. And I also GoPro a lot of my events.
Very cool.
So that way I see what see what I'm doing. You know, it's not just to observe myself. It's also for security as well, because I've caught a couple people to where they'll spill a drink on my setup, and then I'm like, hey, look, you know, we got to talk later. You know, I got this video, you know what I mean, of you spilling this drink on my turntable.
Yeah, what do you? I think every DJ's had that happen to them before. What do you do when that happens, man?
I mean, you can approach it different ways. You know what I mean? And it's almost like, how would you say, when a mistake has happened, it's all about what you do after that mistake. You can approach the person who did it, or maybe the bride and groom or the client itself. They're like, hey, you know what? Don't worry about them. We'll take care of it and stuff like that. So you just get their name and number and information, but you don't make it a big scene at the moment of the events. You know what I mean? You always want to take the professional route instead of bringing a lot of drama to the scene and just blowing up the scenario more than it should be.
Maintain professionalism, right?
Yeah, at all times, because it's kind of like you never know if there's another client in a room that's looking to book you and they're like, oh man, this is amazing DJ, you know what I mean? And let's say if you would have took the other routes, you just lost maybe a couple gigs just because of that decision that you made.
Definitely. Cool, man. So just I want to go back to a couple of things you said to underline them, because I think what you're saying is pretty brilliant, man. The first one, if you're using a laptop, which almost all DJs are these days, take that laptop and instead of putting it right in front of your face, put it off to the side. If you're right-handed, put it off to the right. If you're left-handed, put it off to the left, because you might be smiling, but if the laptop's in front of your damn face, no one's going to be able to see that.
Exactly. I agree with that.
Yeah, cool. And then also, you know, if things happen, if things go down where, you know, there's a problem and something unfortunate happens, like someone spills a drink on your gear, always maintain professionalism, you know, get down the person's contact information and figure out how to deal with that, you know, the repercussions of that later on. But in that moment, in that event, while you're DJing, as long as the event's still happening, always maintain professionalism 100% of the time. Cool.
I would say, this is a good rule of thumb. WWSWD. What would Style Wise do? You know what I mean?
I'd say what would Lewis do, man? I mean, 16 years in the game, man, you got me beat, man. So let's go to this last review that I pulled out, man. And these are just the 3 of my favorites, man. But there's over 215 of these on just weddingwire.com. And as I said, that's just one of the sites you have reviews on. So this was the last one which really stood out to me, and that was this. I have never seen so many people, both old and young, so pleased with the variety of music and dancing like I have never seen so many people dance. And that, in my mind, I get an image. And that image is you bringing people together. And I've always believed that the mission, you know, that the purpose, maybe even on a spiritual level as us DJs, is unity, is bringing people together. And in my mind, I get a vision, a beautiful vision of the way that you're able to do that with both old people and young people. And I just wanted to ask you if you had, you know, any thoughts on how the DJs out there could do that better, and maybe some insight into what it is that you think contributes to you being able to do that so well.
First, I would say like 90% of our clients are going to be diverse. And so their number one concern is going to be, can my DJ cater to my crowd? You know, and that also goes into play of where you're marketed at, you know, like here in Texas, you know what I mean? We have a lot of, you know, Hispanic American weddings and stuff like that, or Indian American weddings and whatnot. So it's first you have to build that confidence with your client, and then to letting them know, say, hey, look, you're not the first clients that we've had a diverse wedding reception, and you're not going to be the last. So we want to just let you know that we've done this plenty of times before, and this is how we do it. XYZ will play this type of music, and then we'll kind of go into here, and these are kind of our rule of thumbs and stuff like that of how we kind of read the crowd. And so we also ask for a playlist from our clients, just to kind of get a feel for, you know what I mean, what their taste of music is. If they're more into 80s, 90s, their do not plays, if, you know, if they love the line dance, if they don't like the line dance. I mean, I'll straight up ask a client, I'm like, hey, look, I need to know if I can play Little John at your wedding or not. And some of them will laugh. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, you just got to be real with a client, build that confidence with them, keep that communication there, and that review will automatically go on your website without even asking sometimes.
And how do you know what kind of mix to use in terms of like the flashbacks and the new stuff? Because that's always a big question, right? If there's different crowds there, maybe there's younger crowds and older crowds, how do you know the right mixture? How do you feel that out so it's just right?
Honestly, I think that really kind of comes with experience. You know, it's almost like, you know, it's just that gut feeling of, you know, hey man, you know what, this is going to be that next good song that they're gonna, you know what I mean, vibe to. And you always got to have a backup plan or plan B, you know, just in case if it doesn't work out. You know, I'm not the type of DJ to where, you know what I mean, I'll start off the night with the wobble. I probably won't even play wobble throughout the whole reception. You know what I mean? There's wedding receptions where I won't play it at all. That's not to say I'll reject to it, but I don't need it. Sometimes I don't need it to, you know what I mean, start a party off. But let's say, for example, if I'm DJing, the crowd's going good, and then all of a sudden I hit a dead song to where it cleared the dance floor, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Everybody gets down to raw bass, it takes two. What the hell just happened? You know what I mean? Then I'll just backspin the record a little bit, throw on the wobble, bam, the dance floor is packed again. And now I got to restructure my game to say, all right, what the hell do I got to play next? And I'm looking at the crowd, and then you just pretty much, you just go with your instinct. And you also, you look off of that playlist that the bride and groom gave you, so to kind of use it as a guide for yourself.
And that's really cool too, because, you know, one thing I'm also saying a lot too is like, put your crowd first. A lot of DJs that make the mistake of they put themselves before the crowd, and they want to think that they know best. And while you do know best, in a way, the crowd is there for you to serve. Your job is to serve the crowd. And if you do something, your job is to kind of like take the lead, I would say, you know. And so if you take the lead, as you know, that's what you're doing. You're leading them to how to have fun. But, you know, you're like the party captain. That's how I say it. You're like the party captain. You're the captain of the party ship, you know, so you got to steer that ship. But if you steer the ship, one way and it doesn't go how you're thinking, you need to be able to react immediately. And that's what you're saying that you're able to do. Even if it's like a not so amazing transition, like a backspin, it's not that big a deal, because what you did is you just saved yourself from, like, you know, the party going in a direction that wasn't the best for everybody. Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of, like, I've been in business since '98, but I started a DJ academy probably about a year and a half ago.
Very cool.
And this is what I tell, like, all the students that come on and stuff. It's kind of like, hey, look, you have to pick the direction of what type of DJ you want to become. You know, wedding DJs are probably the more challenging direction than any of them at all, because it's almost like you have two different sets of families that 80% of them have never seen each other or haven't seen each other in a long time, and you have to put them on the dance floor and make them dance. And sometimes you don't have alcohol to help you out at all, or it's during the daytime. So it's when I talk to my students, it's kind of like I'll kind of tell them, you know, I'll kind of go over some of the basic stuff, and then I'll kind of, this is how you build up a library, and then this is what you do in XYZ. So it's with this DJ Academy, it's really kind of touched my heart into, you know what I mean, exactly what we're doing now is to share information out to everybody else, and to, you know what I mean, giving them knowledge and trying almost speeding up their training process. You know, I'm self-taught, but a lot of the mistakes that I made, it took me years to figure it out. You know, I love to, you know what I mean, help out others and to eliminate that timeline and kind of say, hey, look, you know, I taught and trained, you know what I mean, ex DJ who's now famous. I'll be like, hey, shit, and I'll feel pretty good about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, man. Yeah, and you're not just helping out, you know, that person, but you're helping out all the people that they end up entertaining and bringing enjoyment to, and you're helping out the DJ community, which is a beautiful thing. Yeah, that's really cool, man. And then that's part of my inspiration with this whole successful DJ thing, man, because it's like, you know, there's just not a lot of support in the DJ community for other DJs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really not. I mean, there's DJs out there that love to share information and help out and stuff like that in any way possible. Then you have other DJs who like to be selfish and, you know what I mean, it just brings on a negativity in the community. So it's kind of like, I don't like to down talk them or anything like that, but I feel like, you know, lately in the past few years, the DJ evolution has really kind of kicked in with this whole, all these festivals that have been up and rising. So it's kind of like, where is the whole DJ thing going? It's, well, that we don't know, but it's going into a very, very good direction. So
yeah, man, I totally agree, man. And I really do think that now is the best time. Now is the greatest opportunity in history to become a DJ. And if you've been interested in DJing for a long time, now is the best time in history to really kick it up a notch and become that kind of successful DJ that you want to be, because DJs are so popular right now, and it's a lot easier these days to kind of move forward, whereas before, you know, there was a lot of barriers. You had to spend tons of money on equipment. The cost of equipment has gone down so much. The amount of time that you have to spend. I mean, man, I used to go to the record store and buy vinyl records. I had to carry those things around. Like, you just sit there. You could sit there literally for a whole day and download an entire music library on the computer. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's ever since Serato came out, I was like, man, this is a blessing from God. I was like, thank Lord, I don't have to carry all these crates.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But now, I mean, nowadays, the big question is, and I don't know if you want to talk about the pink elephant in the room, is what's really classified as a DJ now. You know, you have these festival guys who sit there and press the play button. You know what I mean? Are they DJs, or are they just straight up producers that just press the play button? You know, and I tell my kids, I'm like, hey, look, it's almost like anybody can be a DJ. You know what I mean? Whether you use Technique turntables or if you use virtual DJ, it's all about the love of music and sharing that with your audience. Now, the level of DJ is going to depend on how well your skills are and what type of equipment you use. You know, if your audience sees that you use Technique 1200s or CDJ 2000s, you know what I mean? They're going to obviously know that you're serious and your experience is pretty good. Versus if you're doing everything from a laptop, it's kind of like, and you're moving the crowd. You know, obviously, you know, on the whole DJ experience, half of it's presentation. The crowd's probably going to be like, oh man, you were awesome, you played music very well. But they're going to know that there's that missing factor of you did everything from a laptop. You did a great job, but somehow you did everything from a laptop and you pulled it off pretty well. Now, would I pay money to see that same DJ play at a concert from a laptop and that's it? I'd be like, this is a joke, you know? But in the same token, if I went to a concert to see Cascade or Deadmau5, you know what I mean? And I know that all he's doing is pressing the play button. Well, the reason behind him pressing the play button is for there not to be any mistakes at all, because this dude is traveling from city to city, almost has no time to take a shit at all. So I can imagine trying to, you know what I mean, his schedule and trying to get everything accomplished to be ready for a concert. Dude, he has to press the play button in order for everything to run successful. But is he a DJ? Yeah, he's a DJ. You know what I mean? Because he's sharing that love for music to everybody else. So what kind of gets underneath my skin is whenever you have these virtual DJs arguing against the vinyl DJs. Oh, you're not a DJ. Well, you're not a DJ. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we're all DJs. We're just at certain different levels of a DJ, and it's all about sharing that love of music to the crowd. I mean, you could be somebody playing music from a Spotify app, you know what I mean, at a party. Hey, I've had to do that myself probably a couple of times because I didn't want to DJ my own party and all my guys were already booked. But you know what I mean, my guests enjoyed it. Would have been necessary to set up a couple turntables, you know what I mean, and DJ the party for a crowd of 5? Probably not, you know what I mean. So it's just what do you think about all that stuff?
Yeah, man. I mean, you make a lot of really good points, I think, and you say a lot of really good things that I really agree with, man. I mean, yes, on the one hand, these DJs are doing things in a way that we're not used to, right? Like, we're not used to seeing someone have everything pre-mixed and just stand there. And, you know, there's these videos that got leaked. I'm sure, like, the DJs out there have seen them where, you know, they actually caught some of these, like, festival DJs pretending, like, literally pretending, like, messing with the fader knobs or something like that. And, like the channel was turned off or something. So it was obviously clear that they were completely pretending and faking the funk. And so that, I think, for a DJ like such as myself, and I imagine for a DJ like you, who's been in the game for 15 years plus, it's a little bit uncomfortable for us because we're like, man, we put so much effort and energy and passion and love into our performances. Like, it's hard to even imagine just doing that. But at the same time, these are very different types of DJs where they're spending, you know, 17 hours a day producing music, and they're touring. I mean, they don't really, as you said, have time to put the energy and effort into things. And so I think it's hard for us to understand them, and it's hard for them to understand us. So I think it's probably best to just kind of like treat it from a place of non-judgment and say, okay, I'm not really sure what the demands are like to be that kind of DJ. I can't really understand that. But at the same time, I think the bottom line, in my opinion, is this: the DJ world is changing, and DJing as a whole, the art form, is constantly evolving. And you know, we've got CDJs now, the first CDJs with no CDs.
Yeah,
straight up USB.
I was like, for a minute, I thought, I was just like, all right, hold on. How is it going to hurt not to have a CD in there? I mean,
right.
It's why are you going to take the CD out? You know, I know that we're migrating away from CDs, but it didn't make sense to me for a little bit. But I was like, you know what? They probably did that just to kind of knock the price down a little bit. That, and due to the fact of, you know what I mean, a lot of guys probably don't use CDs or whatever, but hey, you know, pioneers been there before my time, so they know best of what direction everything's going to.
Yeah, man. And I will just kind of like underline it with the quote from A-Track, which I posted up on social media not too long ago, and I just pulled it up, and I think this really says it best. And he said, does the fact that we use turntables and not CDJs as controllers make us real DJs? No, that's the most narrow-minded idea. Technology gives us tools. Sometimes it expands what we can do, and it's up to us to use what we want and be creative with it. You know, and that's
pretty
DJ.
powerful.
Yeah, man, and that's DJ A-Track, you know, and he uses turntables, and he's saying like, look, just because I use turntables or whatever, or CDJs or whatever, even controllers, like that's not the thing. The thing that's narrow-minded. The thing that it's about is being creative with what you're given, and I think that that's really like at the core, that's what it means to be a DJ, which is just, you know, being creative with what you're given, which is the music, and giving people enjoyment with that. Would you agree?
I mean, I completely agree, and it's to kind of you know, ride on that tail for a little bit. It's nowadays you can be a DJ and beat match, and everything can go well. In order to stand out as a DJ these days, you really have to be creative and throw, you know what I mean, a little flavor into your mix. Mm-hmm. Maybe add in the APC 40, you know what I mean, and drop some, you know what I mean, movie theme songs or some movie quotes and stuff like that during your whole set.
What's the APC 40? I'm not familiar with that.
APC 40 is kind of like your MIDI controller that's connected to Ableton.
Okay.
So it's you could throw in a bunch of, like, you know, sound effects or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, just pull it up. So it's like little pads for triggering samples.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Or I mean, better yet, try to spin off of for, you know what I mean, techniques. People are gonna be like, damn, this dude's about to DJ this party. He's got 4 decks in front of him. You know what I mean? With 2 laptops. Let's see what he can do with this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And those type of scenarios is what's gonna make you now stand out more than your regular beat matching DJ. They're gonna be like, well, the party last week, this guy spun off of 4 turntables. Oh man, are you serious? You know, type of stuff. So it's really, you know, it's the whole DJ thing. You got Paris Hilton, you got Little John, the DJ, you got all these celebrities that are now riding the bandwagon. So it's kind of like you gotta, if you want to stand out and you want to become known, you just gotta be creative, be innovative, and become a leader into, you know what I mean, the whole DJ community.
Yeah, man, absolutely, man, absolutely. So, Louis, man, I want to ask you a couple more questions, but about DJing specifically. But before we do that, man, let's go back. Can we go back into time, spin the record a little bit to the beginning, man? Because I want to hear about how you got started. You know, maybe rewind to 1998, or you know, when if you even remember like your first gig and what made you fall in love with DJing, and kind of just bring me, you know, give me sort of like a few steps from the past to how you got to where you are today.
It was probably a few months before my birthday back then. I was in high school, and I was in high school or junior high. Oh, I don't know. I think it was junior high, right? And a few months before my birthday, and I was just I just tuned into this radio station, and I just heard, oh, DJ such and such in the mix, and he just started jamming all these songs. I'm like, God, I'm like, man, I want to learn how to do that, because I kind of felt how he got me, you know what I mean, in that mode. And I'm like, man, that's pretty cool, you know. And at that time, your parents are bugging you, asking you questions like, hey man, what do you want to become in life, blah blah blah, you know. And I'm like, man, I don't know about being an engineer, I don't know about being a doctor, you know what I mean. My dad always told me is, whatever you do in life, make sure you're happy, you know. So I was like, well shit, I want to be a DJ. You know, it's this really kind of, you know, makes me happy, and not only makes me happy, it makes everybody around me happy. You know, it's a great tool to kind of, you know, just take everybody in your crowd and throw them on a nice roller coaster wave, and, you know, bring them up to 128 BPMs, bring them down to 100, bring them lower to 80 or 74, whatever the case may be. So I told my dad, I was like, I want to be a DJ. So he went to Radio Shack, bought me this a Gemini mixer and stuff like that. And I was like, all right, so I got the mixer. Cool. All right, I took my mom's speakers, I plugged them into the mixer. I jacked my dad's computer, and back then I was downloading the hell out of Napster and stuff like that. Yep. And I was like, oh man, this is cool. I'm getting free music and stuff like that. So I put the whole setup together, and I did DJ'd my own birthday party. I felt real good about it. You know, kind of had a couple mistakes here and there. Then right after that, I did more of a research of DJs, and I contacted a company in California called Pro Sound and Stage Lighting. And right then and there, the moment I turned 18, I got a credit card, and man, I maxed that motherfucker out. Before you know it, all these boxes started showing up in my front door, and my dad's like, "What the hell is all this?" I'm like, "You told me to become somebody I'm happy with. You know, I want to be a DJ." He was like, "Oh man," so. Now to this day, he looks back and he was like, you know what, you come a long way, and you know, I'm glad this works out for you a lot. And it's the nice thing about the whole experience is it's kind of like, it not only makes me happy, you know, it makes the 20-something people that work underneath my company happy as well. It's kind of like this passion, you know what I mean, to where a lot of my guys work for me full time, you know what I mean, and to also not only share that passion with my employees and stuff like that, but also every single gig that I do, it's an incredible feeling to just, you know what I mean, be, you know, hugged by my clients and be like, oh man, it was awesome, you know, thank you so much, you know. And I was just like, hey, leave that review, please.
Beautiful, man. That's really cool, man. And it's really, really inspiring story, man, because, you know, you just decided that you wanted to do this.
Yeah, it did. And I mean, you know, granted, me first being a DJ, it was probably the first couple months. I did everything. I don't remember what software it was. But after I did my research, I called Pro Sound and Stage Lighting. I was like, man, I'm trying to be a DJ. And they were like, all right, you need this, and this, these turntables, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, cool, I got all the equipment. I'm like, damn, all right, so now I need records. And that's when my record collection started building up. And then before you know it, a few years later, Serato comes out with this software, and I'm like, hold on, shut up. You telling me? I'm like, I was like, oh man, this is beautiful. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be great. So.
And you hopped on the digital thing right away then, huh?
Yeah, I hopped on right away. I mean, it was probably a few years where I was carrying crates and stuff like that. And I learned real quick what a roadie was. So I was like, man, I need somebody to help me out with this shit, because this is getting kind of crazy. Just labeling all my vinyl records, you know what I mean? I'll DJ at a club way back in the day, and there was so much bass coming out the subs to where it would bounce my needle and stuff like that. And I was, God, man, there's got to be an easier way to do all this stuff. And, you know, like I said before, over time, it was kind of like that trial and error of, you know what I mean, what to do, what not to do, and stuff like that. Did they have a DJ school in my area? No. You know what I mean? It was more like I taught myself. I watched, you know what I mean, as many videos as I could and stuff like that, and I just took it from there.
And did you have someone like an older brother or someone like that that kind of like showed you the game, or did you just kind of have to, were you like me, you just kind of had to figure it out on your own?
I don't have an older brother. I'm the oldest in my family, and so I just kind of had to figure everything out by myself. So
yeah, man. And, you know, that's why when I see the amount of resources that are out there, the amount of education that is out there available to newer DJs or to all DJs, really, like, I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I'm like you, Lewis. I had to figure it out on my own. I didn't have a older brother or an uncle that was a DJ. I find a lot of DJs did have that person that kind of showed them the game, that kind of took them under their wing. But, you know, I'm kind of like you, where I had to figure it out on my own. And it was possible, you know, it was possible even without all of these resources online and DJ schools and things like that. So, you know, I just want to kind of underline that to all the DJs that are watching and listening right now, because that's something that is so possible for you, and that you basically, I don't want to sound harsh, but you have no excuse. You really have no excuse not to take advantage of the resources that are out there.
I mean, I wish my older brother was Mixmaster Mike or Q-Bird, you know what I mean? Man, that would have been nice.
Yep. So if you're frustrated with not being where you want to be, you know, if you don't know other people to show you what's up, like, really, it's time to stop complaining and start getting resourceful and just take advantage of the resources that are out there. There's so much resources available, especially online with the internet, that are available to you. And there's amazing DJs like Lewis that are open to share what's working for them, you know, to do interviews like this. So definitely take advantage of those resources. And more importantly, I would say more than anything else, you know, believe that it's possible, man. You know, when you were starting, Lewis, and I'm sure that it wasn't always easy and it wasn't awesome all the time. You know, were there challenges where you got up to a point where you said, God, how am I going to get past this? You know, and if you did have those challenges, which I'm imagining that you did, how did you deal with them?
I mean, some of the few challenges that I kind of came across, you know, as I grew as a DJ, it was kind of like, you know, how many times I had to say no on the weekends, and it kind of put a big old question mark in my head. I was like, man, what if I wasn't the only DJ? What if I opened up a company, you know what I mean, and started a actual DJ company, and, you know what I mean, subcontracted out DJs and stuff like that to kind of share the love to everybody. So, I mean, the first challenge is trying to train an old dog new tricks. You know, when you bring a DJ, when I brought a DJ on board, it's kind of like, you know, they were used to what they were trying to do, but I had almost like a solution of how to make a wedding reception or an event successful, you know, and then it was trying to teach that DJ on, you know what I mean, but not really, you know, change his style or anything like that. That was probably one of the biggest challenges was, you know what I mean, and involving that type of training with, you know what I mean, DJs who's been in the game longer than me at that time, and trying to put them underneath my company and like, oh man, who's this cat? You know what I mean? Type of thing. Why is he trying to tell me how to DJ when I've been doing this longer than him?
He's got more gigs than you. That's why.
Exactly. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges in the very beginning, you know. And then before you know it, it was kind of like, man, I gotta try to manage these DJs, and then also I gotta manage these DJs and do my own gigs, and then take care of all these meetings and phone calls and stuff like that. Man, I'm gonna need like a staff to take care of this. And so the next challenge is trying to build a system to where it communicated with the client, and it was a nice flow from beginning to end, from the moment that they reached out to us and to the moment that the event was done. You know what I mean? So what was the next step? Okay, booking. How's the invoice going to be delivered? how's the contract going to be delivered? You know what I mean?
Let's go down. Let's like delve into that just a little bit, man, because I know that's where a lot of DJs, even DJs who are doing well, they don't have that process. They don't have that process really. It's still a little bit messy. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk a little bit about your process for doing that, and just kind of walk me through, and the DJs watching and listening, walk us through how you go from the person reaching out to you and being interested in booking you to actually you booking it, and how you kind of take them through those steps.
I mean, I'm gonna receive 3 different type of ways to where a client's gonna reach out to us. It's either gonna be on our website itself, or it's going to be a phone call, or it's going to be a direct email straight into the inbox. And so first thing you got to do is figure out where your business is coming from, and how much of, you know what I mean, you got to look at the year and see which one's bringing in the most business. Is it the people who are coming in through the website, or is it the direct emails? All my direct emails are pretty much from previous clients, and those previous clients will go down the list. It's venues where I'm on a preferred vendor list, or coordinators that I work with all the time on the corporate side or on the wedding side, you know what I mean, or on the club side and stuff like that. So, and then you have the direct phone calls to where people will call you, and if you don't answer, it's kind of like they'll go to the next person. They don't have time to leave a voicemail. Yep. So
big tip. Answer your phone. That's money. That's money right there.
That's money ringing there for you. And it's kind of like if the biggest thing is voicemails. If somebody leaves a voicemail, you know what I mean? I've had clients, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter how much, you know what I mean, I threw the number out to them. They booked based upon the first person that responded to them, because they wanted to get that one thing checked off their list.
Yep.
So to them, money was an issue. It was more like, I need a DJ. I'm gonna contact 5 companies, and whoever gives me a bid first and hits me back up first pretty much gets the gig. You know, and that's how a lot of corporate clients work like that. They're like, look, I ain't got time. I got shit I gotta do today. You know what I mean? Let me take care of the DJ aspect. Send out 5 emails. Out of those 5 emails, one company hits them back up. The other ones are still, hey, you know what I mean, playing the whole cat and mouse game. And they're like, I ain't got time for it. Send me your pricing, and that's plain and simple.
Yep.
You know.
Yep, that's actually how I got my first wedding gig ever, man. And I was still actually a teenager at the time, and I actually had to cut class to go to the meeting, and they had no idea. I think I was like 17, so I had a little bit of facial hair. I played it off, man. I dressed kind of nice, I dressed pretty nice, so I showed up with a nice like briefcase. I looked professional, and so they didn't even question my age. But that was how I got that gig, and I had never done a wedding before in my life. And she told me it was the wedding coordinator who actually posted on Craigslist looking for DJs, and she said that the reason why she went with me is because I was the first person that responded, and that was it. And so not only did that set me up for obviously getting the gig, but they didn't question me. They didn't question my experience at all. Now, part of that was because I showed up and I was professional, but another part of that was because that's what professionals do. And I think sort of what you're getting at, Lewis, is that professional DJs act a certain way and not professional DJs act a different way. And one of the biggest signs, one of the biggest indicators that people know a professional does is they are responsive.
I completely agree. And, it's the responsiveness is a huge thing. All right, so let's go back to the system real quick.
Yep, let's do it.
Yeah, so you got your inquiry that's coming in. So I have a person who takes care of all my repeated clients. You know what I mean? And those are red carpet clients. You know what I mean? They're going to get a little bit extra treatment, you know what I mean? Because, it's a coordinator or it's a venue that's constantly sending us business all the time. So I have one dedicated salesperson that's going to take care of all that stuff. Yep. You know what I mean? Then I have another person that's going to take care of all the basic inquiries that come in through the website and stuff like that. So that way, you know what I mean? Those clients are kind of separated a little bit. The client that let's say for example, is attached to a coordinator or whatever not, I'm gonna send out the special truck to their event. I'm gonna send out the truck that's all wrapped up, all nice and pretty and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Only because there's a big chance that event is either a celebrity or they have a lot of money or whatever the case may be. And you know what I mean? It's more like, how would you say, I'm gonna send out 3 guys to install lighting instead of sending out 1 guy, because it's the coordinator wants to see like a team of production people getting everything done. You see what I'm saying? So it goes from there. And then when I first started DJing, you know, I was meeting my clients at Starbucks. I mean, that was cool and gravy and stuff like that, until I started experiencing some problems with, you know, trying to locate my clients at Starbucks, or trying to even have a simple conversation whenever I trying to have a simple conversation with them when I got, you know, some people next to me that are kind of eavesdropping, or they're kind of like butting into my conversation. You know what I mean? So I learned real quick that I needed an office, and I needed to surround my clients with an environment that's going to make them feel very, very comfortable. So I threw in a nice, expensive, comfortable couch, a flat screen, you know, doing some nice lighting into the office, and also threw in a setup. So client walks in, you know what I mean, I automatically introduce them to a DJ, or my staff does. They're like, hey, this is such and such, you know what I mean? That we think is going to be a great fit for your wedding. Now, let's backtrack real quick before that meeting actually happens. We're going to find out through email or through the phone, that conversation with the client, we're going to find out what type of music that they like, or more or less what their expectations are. That's how we assign a DJ to their event, based upon that DJ's the genres of music that he's strong at. So client goes into the office, they meet the DJ. The whole time while I'm talking to the client, or my staff is, the DJ spinning, you know what I mean, some light music in the background, whether it's house, whether it's background Frank Sinatra, whatever the case may be. And you could tell immediately that client's, you know what I mean, like, oh man, this is good, this is real cool. You know, it's almost like it didn't matter what I said to them, you know what I mean, in a conversation, because that music's playing in the background, it was controlling their emotions, and it was putting them into a great mood. You know what I mean? The lighting in the room is, I've replaced all the, like your what's it called, halogen lights and stuff like that, and I put in track lighting, I put in a dimmer, I put some up lights in there and stuff like that. So they're walking into an office to where the ambiance and the settings, you know what I mean, almost just like their wedding reception. The TV that's in front of them is flipping pictures of the venue that they're at. So it's almost like while we're talking, they're constantly looking at that TV and like, oh man, that's pretty, you know. It's like they know that we've already been there. It's obvious because we have previous event pictures of that place. You know what I mean? So it's like you set up the whole room for success before they walk in.
Yeah, I mean, they're walking in there. I'm just putting myself in that position. They're walking in there and they're like, oh, this guy's not new at this. No,
not at all. Hey, you know what's funny? It's kind of like one of the first questions that they'll ask is, oh, how long have you been in business? And I'm like, yeah, we actually just started last week. You know what I mean? I'm kind of nervous. I'm doing my first. and sometimes they'll laugh like, nah. And then other times they got like this blank face like, seriously? Or and then the other questions I ask them like, hey, look, what would you like to drink? You want some water? You want a shot of Patron? And they'll chuckle. They're like, oh man, shot of Patron, hold up. So it's you're setting that client in that comfortable atmosphere, and you're building up that great relationship that's going to continue for the next 6 months or a year, and before you know it, like I said before, that review is going to come in automatically.
Very cool. So they reach out to you, you get them to the meeting, and then you bring them into this ambiance, which sounds amazing, and you talk to them, and then you get to the one point where a lot of DJs freeze up, and that's the money part. That's the what do you charge part. So tell me a little bit about that, and let's just talk a little bit about that, because I know a lot of DJs struggle with that when the conversation gets to that point.
Well, before the client even walks into the office, they already know how much we charge.
Smart.
So in the beginning, that was my biggest problem. It was kind of like, man, what do I charge this client? What's their budget? So after a while, I stopped using the budget word. I'm like, look, this is my price. You know what I mean? I don't want to waste your time. I don't tell them this. I'm like, I don't want to waste your time. I'm sure that you don't want to waste my time. It's whether you can afford it or you can't. You know what I mean? And they come into the office, they already know what we charge, and it's more like, okay, cool. But we know that we feel comfortable with how much we're about to spend. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I mean, 9 times out of 10, they're adding on, you know what I mean, everything else that we have to offer from the get-go. It's so they trust us and to know how much we charge, and then it's kind of like they feel comfortable into spending the rest of their money with us, and then before you know it, it's kind of like their balance is like $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 without a flinch. And I'm like, shit, why didn't I do this in the beginning? But like I said, it all goes back to trial and error and learning everything. So it's teaching myself and knowing what to do, what not to do, and then of course listening to my business coach. So
cool, man. Yeah, and confidence, I think too. You know, would you agree?
Yeah, it's honestly, if you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Sorry, my screensaver just went on.
It's all good.
Honestly, it's if you're going to throw, if it's really confidence. If you're going to throw a number out to your client and you're not confident about that number, or you're shaky or whatever the case may be,
right,
your client's going to read that.
Yep.
And you know what I mean? If they're not good reading at stuff like that, their subliminal mind is going to catch that, and it's going to give them that gut feeling. Yep. Like,
they'll feel it.
You know what I mean? So it might not be them themselves. It might be their subliminal part of them, to where they're kind of like, you know, I don't know about this. You know what I mean? Type of thing. So you got to create that environment for that client. You got to make them feel comfortable. You got to keep that communication up to point. You know what I mean? And you just got to be honest with them. You know, it's kind of like, if I have a staff of DJs that work for me, you go on my website, you're going to see all their pictures and their names and everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I noticed that. And if you're watching or listening to this interview, have a look at Lewis's website. It's really impressive, lgentertainers.com, so you can see what we're talking about. Yeah,
and it's kind of like, you want to really separate yourself, get on that social media game. It's kind of like, that's it. Every time we do an event that, you know what I mean, has great lighting and stuff like that, we'll start posting pictures on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We'll post our blog stuff, you know what I mean? We'll try to do it every single week about just random stuff, if it's not about weddings or whatever. And it gives our clients that feel like, hey, we're being, let's just be real about everything. You know, here's an example. You go to our contact page, it says, please fill out the form below if you want to contact with LG Entertainment HQ. Please keep in mind that our dates fill up quickly. We can only hold a date without a contract for a limited time. If we don't get back with you within 2 business days, please note, you know what I mean, to give us a call back, because technology is not always the best. You know what I mean? So if you go to our fact sheet, you know, it has your basic questions that people always ask and stuff like that. You know, I'll tell you a funny one is, let's say, for example, does the DJ bring lights? And the answer is no. We know that you spent several hours at a floor appointment trying to decide between 3 different shades of pink. We wouldn't dare try to ruin the environment with some lasers or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? So our biggest thing is, when we talk about lighting and stuff like that, we make it known, say, hey, look, placement of DJ is important. The lighting is important. If you want the dance floor lights, we can add it on. You know what I mean? These are these different types of lights. You know, when you have your client in a meeting, you get it's also an educational meeting to the client. It's informing them of what you have to offer and what that product is. You know, so that way they actually understand what they're getting.
Very cool, very cool. And just so DJs can get a sense of where you're at, you know, what is your base package? Like, what's the cheapest package you offer, and then what's like the most someone could spend with you?
I mean, I've had invoices that were like $300 or $350 or $400 or whatever not, and then my biggest ticket that hit record was probably about 18 grand. So it varied, you know what I mean? Not all of our events are just DJing, you know. Some of them are just lighting. It could be just a simple uplighting gig, you know what I mean, for a few uplights and stuff like that. The biggest thing is like when I started off as a DJ, you know what I mean, production fell into my lap automatically. You know, and especially with the whole uplighting thing, like I started uplighting about six or 7 years ago, and before you know it, I have people now asking for staging and draping and, you know what I mean, stuff like that. So I'm just kind of like, man, okay, let's start selling some staging. That's cool with me, you know what I mean?
Very cool, man. Very cool. Yeah, and that's definitely like an added benefit of doing really well at one thing. Because if you do really well at one thing, you know, people, they go, okay, well, if he does that thing really well, then he probably does a lot of other things pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. So, and they'll ask. It's like part of that conversation that we have with our clients in that meeting. It's kind of like, hey, what else are you looking for? You know, and they'll say, oh, we need XYZ, we need this and this. Okay, cool. You know what? I worked with this florist quite a bit. Let me send you their information and stuff like that. Or actually, I need a photographer. I was like, cool, no problem. So you know, after everything's all said and done in that meeting, you know what I mean, we want to show how helpful and how helpful we are to our clients, and to referring them, you know, some great vendors that we work with all the time. And it's kind of like we're sharing that love with other people in the industry, and that's how we get a lot of business as well, is because they share that same love back over to us. That's
great, man. Yeah, and I call this being their trusted advisor. You know, like when it comes to putting on an event, people don't want to have to do all this stuff, man. Like, it's just stuff that they don't really want to do. What they want is the result. They want the end result. So if you can make that easier for people, they're happy to work with you on that. And I mean, I can tell you that all those vendors that you're sending business to, they're probably more than happy to get the business from you, right?
Yeah. And it's like a constant, me scratch their back, they scratch, you know what I mean, our back, all the time. So it's great, you know what I mean. I love what I do. I didn't think it was gonna get this big, but you know what I mean, I'm not mad at it.
Very cool, man. Yeah, you definitely are blessed, man. And one thing I want to ask you about the wedding thing is, you know, that's clearly what you've branded yourself as your specialty. And I talk to DJs and talk about this a lot. And I think that differentiation in a world of increasing competition, where not only are you competing with other DJs now, but you're competing with technology because there's Pandora, there's iTunes, there's new things. People are listening to music on YouTube now. You know, the competition is increasing, but you know, in a world of more and more DJs where it's becoming more and more popular, differentiation is really becoming not just something that is important, but it's becoming something that's absolutely mandatory, absolutely necessary. And you've done a really good job with that, Louis. You know, just making it very clear of what your specialty is. So I'm curious as to how you ended up specializing in weddings and why it is that you find that is the area that you specialize in. Because I imagine you could do and have done all different types of gigs.
I mean, it's weddings are the service or the thing that pays how would you say, if you're locally known, it's going to be the service that's going to pay you the most money. And that's, you know what I mean, along with corporate events. There's a ton of corporate events that happen during the week, you know what I mean, fashion shows and stuff like that. And then we had the weddings that happened on the weekend. So did I decide to choose to only do weddings? No, it kind of just worked out for itself, you know what I mean. It's almost like I DJ at a club, right? And they're not going to pay nowhere near the same amount of money as they pay me for a wedding reception. You know, even though DJing at a club is cool and stuff like that, and I have a great time doing it, but it's a whole different clientele, it's a whole different animal, and it's a whole different market that, you know, it's, if you're a family man and you're DJing at a club, you know what I mean, you're going to come home at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that, maybe drunk and stuff, but you're going to have maybe $150, $200, if you're lucky, $300 in your pocket, you know what I mean, versus DJing a wedding reception. That wedding will probably end at about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, you know, and you didn't have to haggle the, you know what I mean, club owner to try to get paid,
right?
Or you didn't have to haggle the promoter and stuff like that, or there wasn't like a different scenario. There wasn't a crazy scenario to where there was like a promoter accidentally booked 2 DJs or nobody showed up. You know what I mean? So right. I love working for weddings. You know what I mean? It's a challenge. You know what I mean? It's a challenge that is put upon my lap every single weekend, to where it's kind of like, all right, I got to get these people on the dance floor. You know what I mean? It's not the same venue that I'm working with every single time. It's a different spot, different set of people. You know, it's a different atmosphere. I had residencies at clubs to where it's almost like the same exact people went there every single time, and it was almost, how would you say, if I play Little John, they'll throw their hands up in the air and they'll go crazy and stuff like that. I'm like, man, I'm tired. You know what I mean? Yep. I'm tired of the same old spot.
Yeah, it gets monotonous, doesn't it?
It does, and I don't really, you know what I mean. I don't mind, you know, hopping on some of my guys' club residencies and, you know, playing every now and then, just trying to change up my atmosphere. But I couldn't really see myself doing a residency every single time. Now, book me in Vegas at one of the high-end clubs, and I wouldn't be bored with that at all.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother game, man. But you know, I like what you're saying, man, because you know, sort of the feel I get from what you're saying is that, you know, you just can feel that you're making a bigger difference in people's lives with the wedding thing. Yeah. And to me that really feels good, and I can hear that when you talk about it, because you know you put so many years into this, over 16 years. You know, it's nice to be appreciated, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it's great, and especially when, you know, the client comes up to me and throws like a fat nice tip of $200 or $300. Shit, I appreciate that very much. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's, you know, in any day of the week.
Yeah, that's really cool, and that's one thing that's cool about and just doing private parties in general. You know, you're making a real positive difference in people's lives, and they're paying you well, because it's an important thing. It doesn't happen all the time. Club gigs happen all the time, and like I said, I'm with you. I think club gigs are cool from time to time, but you know, to make your main focus be the thing that really makes the biggest difference in people's lives and pays big money, multiple thousands of dollars per gig, that's really the ultimate, because not only are you serving people in a way that really helps them and makes them happy, but you're able to provide for your family and grow your company at the same time. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing, man. I think that's what every DJ really is dreaming about at the end of the day, is just to do what they love and to get paid well for it. And you have definitely are a great example of someone who's done that, and you're serving the DJ community. I mean, you said 18 different DJs you have working for you, right?
12 DJs. We have right about an average of 18 events every single weekend.
18 events a week and 12 DJs working for you, man. And so that's not something where you're just causing a positive difference in the crowd, but you're making a difference in the lives of the DJs working for you. So I'm really inspired, Louis, personally, just to see a DJ that's doing so well. And thank you, man, for sharing your insights, man. And I just like to end the interview by asking you if you'd like to say anything to the DJs watching, listening to this right now. Any words of advice for a DJ who aspires, who's waking up every day with a dream of getting to the level of success that you have with this DJ thing?
I definitely have to say, nowadays, if you want to become a DJ, it's almost very easy, and there's a lot of tools out there. You know what I mean? You have Qbert, who has an online academy. You know what I mean? We have an in-house academy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, if you want to do it, you can self-taught yourself, and it's real easy. There's like a tremendous amount of YouTube videos, but the successful DJs, passion is what comes first. You know what I mean? You gotta have that love for music. You can't just be monotonous and just play the tune and not have that facial motion or anything like that. You got to make sure your communication game is on point. If not, then you're not really going to go nowhere with a lot of your clients. You just treat them like you want to be treated. Just communicate with them, just be real with them, and just let them know what the deal is. If you think that this is what your price is, and your communication level is on point, they're going to pay it. They're not, you know what I mean? But if you're going to sit there and try to throw the budget number at them, then they're going to feel like they're going to get that question mark in their head, like, oh, I don't know, you know what I mean? I guess he wants to discount his services. If you're that type of person that wants to be discounted, by all means, do that. You know what I mean? You're not going to get very far.
Right. And that's what everybody's trying to do. So that's like the hard path, because you're competing against a lot of other DJs who are trying to be the discounted option. So that's why it's not really, that's a really difficult path to go. Like the path to go, I think the path I would recommend is to go a path like you've gone, where you're creating more value for people and you're also charging more for that. So it's higher price point, but it's also higher quality.
You just got to create that. You have to create that standard for yourself. It's almost like you walk into the Microsoft store, you know what I mean, and they have a lower price point than you go to the Apple store. You know what I mean? I want to pay the Apple price. I want that Apple product. You know what I mean? I want that Apple environment, and I'm gonna feel good about spending that money. You know what I mean? You gotta take that same concept and apply it to your own business, and that's how clients are going to feel comfortable with your service. You know what I mean? And that's really the best advice I have for all those guys out there. And then, like I said before, if y'all have any questions, just shoot me an email, give me a phone call and stuff like that. I'm here for you.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Louis, I can't thank you enough, man, for taking the time to sort of share your secrets and your story, man. And you, like I said, man, you're just a real inspiration to both myself and the DJ community as a whole. And I'm sure a lot of DJs' lives will be better off as a result of this interview.